We have a very, very tragic story out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have a great pillar in the Black American community where a sister by the name of Sadie Roberts-Joseph, 75 years old, was discovered in the trunk of a car 3 miles from her home. Now, I want you to watch this particular clip, and once you see this, it's like, who in the world would be so cowardice to even lay a finger on this great sister?
Tribute placed in the ground Saturday at the African American Museum in Baton Rouge, saying, "We'll miss you, Mommy."
This particular crime on this particular individual left me empty.
The body of 75-year-old Sadie Roberts-Joseph was found in the trunk of a car Friday on Adams Avenue in Baton Rouge. She was the founder and curator of Odell S. Williams Now and Then Museum of African American History.
Every African American person to know their history. She wanted to show you your history. She wanted you to touch your history. She wanted you to feel your history.
Well known and well loved in the community.
For the last 20 years I've known her, gotten close to Miss Sadie. She started CADAV, which was Community Against Drugs and Violence.
Joseph's big thing was Juneteenth, the celebration that marked the end of slavery for African American slaves in Texas that came 2 years after the rest of the slaves in this country were freed.
To celebrate, to embrace our history, to learn of our past, and to be able to move forward in unity.
Joseph held a large Juneteenth celebration at the museum.
I too do a Juneteenth celebration, so she wanted me to know a little bit about the history of Juneteenth, and she actually wanted us to come together and do one together.
Sadie Roberts-Joseph, a well-loved member of the community, and leaving it with a monument of her life's work.
Now, that's extremely sad. That sister didn't even look 75 years old. Well, that's that power of that melanin that God has blessed us with. Now, this sister was a respected civil rights leader in Baton Rouge. They say in 2001 she founded the Baton Rouge African American History Museum, which according to his website features exhibits of African art and tells the stories of black inventors. They say it also includes displays of historical artifacts from the civil rights era, including the 1963 bus used during the civil rights boycotts in Baton Rouge. Okay, so she was also a founder of the Community Against Drugs and Violence, and each year she organized a Juneteenth celebration, a commemoration of the emancipation of slaves in the American South. Let me stop right there. Miss Sadie had it right. And I got to talk about this now when it comes to Juneteenth. People that walk around with ADOS on their hashtag and say they ADOS all day long, or other black people that say that they're, awakened to the reality of racism and white supremacy, it is no way in God's green earth that you need to be celebrating on July 4th. None. But some of you do celebrate that. Why? July 4th, 1776, where were your ancestors? In the plantation fields of America, working for free, whips on their backs, picking cotton all day. That's where your ancestors were. July 4th is a celebration for white folks. It's not a celebration for black people. Now, June 19th, that is a celebration for us, 1865. Because that when we finally found out that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by President Abraham Lincoln. So we should celebrate that. That's when we got our freedom out of those chains. June 19th should be a national holiday, no different than July 4th should be a holiday for this country. That's how I feel about that. Now, as one state recently, I think Pennsylvania or Virginia, one of those states recently have actually made it a state holiday, June 19th. But it should be a national holiday because it's a very important turn in American history. And especially for us as black people, we need to be celebrating. Yes, a lot of us do. But it needs to be so much of a celebration that they say, man, black people, they be turning up on the 19th of June. And say, but I don't see them doing nothing July 4th. Now, July 4th, get your extra money on your job. Matter of fact, if you got that kind of job that you could work and everybody else don't want to work, volunteer to work July 4th because you're going to get double pay or overtime pay, whatever kind of job do you have. So say, yeah, I work July 4th. I want to make that money. Or you could take it as just an extra day off of work. You can do that. But June 19th is definitely something that we should celebrate. We should make it a big fanfare every year, just as Miss Sadie would wanted us to do, okay? Now, people like Miss Sadie, it was horrible the way she lost her life, being killed and being put in the trunk of a car. The coward that did that, if anybody in Baton Rouge know anything, say something to the police, say, hey, I know who did it or whatever. Please turn them in, because that's so wrong. But we're having so many of our brothers and sisters who are passing away with that history. And a lot of us don't want to really get involved with history, but we have to start getting involved with history, whether it's American history in relation to us, or history of, African history, the transatlantic slave trade history. We got to get involved with every aspect that we are been on the earth for forever, right? Because if we don't know our history, that's when these people try to tell you all you were was a slave, okay? And that is a part of our history. That's a blip in our history. But black people have been existing for millions and millions of years. And when I went seeing the artifacts of what black people created at the National Museum of Ethiopia, and the tools they use to even show the Neanderthals how to use tools, so they didn't know how to do nothing because they was in caves, then it changed your whole paradigm about black people. When you start seeing the things that black people done way before this transatlantic slave trade. This is why I understand that the terminology that they're using to make a claim for reparations, I get that, but I don't define myself by slavery, because we come from the great kings and queens of Africa that ran civilizations for thousands upon thousands of years before even the Neanderthal showed up, okay? So that's why I'm a firm believer of the global aspect and the global black community, because I see us just being bigger and bigger and better as we should be, and it's dangerous to pigeonhole ourselves just to what our experience have been in America. There's a video that my grandmother actually sat down with me and talked with us for, almost about an hour about a lot of, history in itself. And I think we'll just go ahead and post that on the website. But in that particular video, she was telling us everything that we went through, it definitely in her time period, and how so many things have changed. And without people telling you the history and actually keeping artifacts and actually encouraging us to never forget, because one thing the Jews say is never again. And the reason why they say never again is because they preserve their history and they tell you what happened to them. Everybody know what happened to them, right? It's because they made sure you know. And black people, if you don't want slavery repeated and the Jim Crow repeated and lynchings repeated and white mobs repeated, or whatever the case may be, you got to constantly teach it. You got to teach your children, and you got to prepare them for the world they're dealing with, because this world is changing very, very fast. And it's not looking good for black Americans. The more and more I look at this and the great attacks, like they have really just ratcheted up the attack on black America, but that is a whole different video for a different time. Sadie was definitely standing up against those in our community who are doing things against ourselves, which is totally wrong. And, you look at someone like her, who's trying to preserve the history, know what we've been through, and then you have some of us fighting each other and harming each other. And I always said this, people that harm other black people in the community, they don't have a knowledge of self. Because when you have a knowledge of self, you can't kill another black man or another black woman like talking about. Because once you appreciate yourself, you definitely want to preserve the life of people that look like you. So that's why loving ourselves, waking up is very, very important, because if you want the crime to go down like this, we just need to be a love of self. That's all it has to be, and it will stop overnight. We wouldn't have the issues and problems anymore. But the police need information. They said that this particular sister, she was definitely just trying to gather everybody. Looked at her as a street historian, and she would always tell people about what's going on in the community and what is happening in our history. And we owe it to people like Miss Sadie to continue that work. We shouldn't back down, we shouldn't bow down, but we should always continue with the people that left before us. It's very, very sick what happened to her, being 3 miles away from her home. And it happened to her, okay? Now, earlier that day, she had mixed some cornbread, but they say her oven went out, and she went to one of her neighbor's house to put it in the oven, but she never came back to get the cornbread because something ended up happening to her. So I hope they find who did it, or whoever did it, turn yourself in. I mean, how could you sit up there and do that to a 75-year-old woman? The best way to preserve what she has done is someone young step up and continue what this sister has done in the community. Preserve that museum that she's opened. Matter of fact, make it bigger. Get a bigger place than what she had before and build on what she has done. The work this sister put in, it can't just go away. It can't. We have to pick up the legacy where other people left off. You see, when white folks have their legacy, whether it's money or whatever, they young pick that up and they continue to build it. We have to be more involved in legacy as black folks worldwide. And we cannot let what the previous generation have built go down the tubes. Because as of right now, we are letting things go down the tubes based off of what was built in the civil rights movement. But now we're trying to rebuild something else again. But legacy is something that you build on. You don't let things just go down. Don't let this sister's work go away. Please don't. Step up. Well, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about the situation that happened in Baton Rouge. But we're under attack, ladies and gentlemen. We are. Every day in America that we're living, we're under siege. Trust me on that. We got politicians that don't care about black people. Even black politicians don't care about black people. They care about people coming across the border, but they don't care about black people at all. I mean, I'll probably talk about that another time too. But we all we got. This is why I'm a firm believer of we have to stick together. I'm a firm believer we need to unify as a community and even as a global community. Because no one gonna care about us but us.